just wait for the go ahead. So welcome. What I've been asked to talk about, and I'm really delighted to be here, is just to talk about virtual reality and what virtual reality is, and maybe what virtual reality isn't. So I'm just going to talk you through a PowerPoint that I'll share with you. And I'll also then just talk I'll show you some videos of different uses of VR, and then leave a little bit of time to take any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to stick them into the chat, and we'll go from there. So in the meantime, I'm just going to share a quick presentation with you. So I'm the CEO of SolasVR, and we have a mindfulness, nature-based mindfulness app for VR, but I'll talk about it a bit more than that. So the first thing is, what's the VR secret sauce? And really what we're talking about here is virtual reality convinces us that we are in the place that is presented in front of us. It's the Star Trek holodeck. So when we put a headset on and think we're in nature, our body believes we're in nature. We react viscerally, physically and emotionally. So in nature, we produce the responses we would do as if we're in a forest or beside a lake. We start to feel calmer. In training, we do things, certain procedures, and our body stimulates muscle memory. So it's not just an intellectual understanding, it's also it gets into our muscles. So when we do it in real life for the first time, it's not from our head, it's from our habits that we've formed in VR. And for communication, it's really important because we believe we're talking to the person whose avatar is sitting in front of us. And in VR, we create a connection to that person. And I'll talk a little bit about the detail of that. So VR and training. So these are some of the use cases of virtual reality. So what all the studies say is we get VR and training is improved concentration levels, improved memory retention. We create an emotional connection to the item we're training about, and it increases our receptivity. So it means we absorb more, partly because we have a headset on and we've no distractions, but partly because of the benefit of VR itself. So what we find is then, oh, sorry, bear with me 1 second. So what we find in the case studies, we've technical training skills, and I just might see if I can share a slide with you here. Now that's a challenge for some reason. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing that just for 1 second, and I'm going to share just a little case study here. And what this is just a it's just a small study or a small video that I wanted to show you on technical training. Sorry about the technology. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing for me. Okay, we might ignore that for the moment, and I'll go back to the presentation. So in the technical training that VR started to be used for really was training that is expensive or dangerous to train people in. So generators on oil rigs, where you have to bring people out to an oil rig, military applications, loading and unloading planes in combat situations, using VR to teach people how to use machines in hospitals where it's expensive or time consuming to shut down things like MRI machines or CAT scans. VR is used for that. VR is also used then, and an interesting study actually that we'll just have a quick look at is PwC. What they discovered after a lot of work was that VR is 4 times faster to train than in the classroom. People are 275% more confident to apply skills learned after training. They're almost 4 times more emotionally connected to content than classroom learners. And they're 4 times more focused than their e-learning partners. So that's a huge difference for virtual reality to e-learning or classroom-based learning. And it happens because we get this emotional connection to what's in front of us. We get this visceral connection. We also get no distractions. And there's something about the ritual of putting on a headset that means now I'm now learning. We're not walking into a room with a coffee cup and a file and talking to our colleagues and sitting down, and we're still thinking about being in the office or the commute into work or whatever. What we're thinking about is what's presented in front of us, and it transports us there. And that's a really important element of the training piece. The other piece that it's virtual reality is being used for, and it may not be a topic for today's conversation as such, but virtual reality is used an awful lot in clinical and hospital settings. So it's used in areas like the treatment of people with dementia, the treatment of people with phobias, the treatment of people with post-traumatic stress, for example. So training is a big place for VR. And what I might do now is just share this one with you, which is a partner of ours, PixelVR, and it just gives you an idea
training unlocks human potential
of what the training
in the
is.
best way possible through hands-on experience. Trainings explore fully immersive and interactive 3D workspaces that dissolve the barrier between virtual and actual reality, keeping them mentally and physically engaged.
So you can see that you're physically in the environment and you're actually doing things. So you're not just understanding them.
Opportunities with story narratives that change behavior, improve performance, and reduce errors, all in a risk-free setting. Create efficient.
And they don't show you in this video, but you know, part of this training is if you fail to put on that belt and you fall over, it's pretty horrific when you hit the floor. So it really gets you to think about the importance of these trainings.
Breaking multi-user VR that allows dozens to train in a single session from anywhere at any time. Close the skills gap faster with our innovative randomization engine, which exposes trainees to millions of scenarios, a career's worth of experience in just days or even hours. Create a culture of safety with pulse-pounding simulated consequences that vividly demonstrate the importance of procedures and compliance. Best of all, our advanced data tracking and real-time reporting provides instant feedback for trainees and critical insight.
And what you get here is a really robust learning management system. So you know, even if you're working on a task, the data will tell you how long it took to switch from this switch to press that button, where you looked around till you did it. So how fluent you are with the training. So it's not just the visuals.
Evolve your workforce. Choose an experience from our growing content library, or get a custom VR training solution for your business. Create a new reality with PixelVR.
So that just gives an idea of the kind of activity that is undertaken in VR. It's also used for soft skills training, and that's a really important part of it. Oh. It's also used in soft skills training, and that's an important part that people sometimes have thought about training and seen it as the hard skills, but there's a really interesting work been going on, and one of these is one that I'll just maybe share with you now, which is done by a company called Body Swaps. And if I get a chance, I'll just pick this up here and just give you a quick look at this. So what happens in Body Swaps is this one is a scenario where you're doing some one-to-one development work or an appraisal with one of your colleagues. So first you go into your avatar and you start to work with that. You then meet the colleague, he's brought into the office. You get a little case note about him and what you need to say to him.
asking me silly questions all the time.
It allows you to listen to what your colleague is saying.
Constantly interrupting me, so I can't get on with my work. And frankly, I'm too busy doing their jobs for them.
It's your role to involve.
And then you get an opportunity to give some comments and some feedback to your colleague. So you tell them what you'd like to see them do better, what you need from them.
You to help them out. I understand that you can.
And then the very cool piece here
more efficiently
is that you swap bodies. So you get to watch yourself giving your colleague feedback. You get to see your body language, you get to see your emotional responses. So you get to make mistakes in VR talking to your colleagues rather than making them in real life when you're doing an appraisal or a review or an interview. So we can see it's hard skills, it's soft skills. And then of course, the other piece that I wanted to just mention, because this is, this is what we do, is the wellness piece. So what we find in wellness is we have a great opportunity really to take people out of where they are, to take them out of the office environment, to create, a micro break for them, to create an opportunity for them not to be in the office, but to be in nature. And I'll show you a little video first before we go further with that. I can just share this one with you now. And I know I'm showing a lot of videos, but there's a reason, because I just wanted people to experience virtual reality rather than just talk about it. So we just shared this video here. Again, just the idea of selecting a visual, selecting the voiceovers, and then taking you to the nature spot, which is a full 360 experience.
Welcome. Welcome to a place of great natural beauty. A place of...
And it's extraordinary. When we show this to people, particularly in the winter in Ireland where it gets dark, they're just so excited to see the sunshine, and all they want to do is just look around and look at the sun, and they feel better about themselves. And for some people, it's being near water, being near trees.
Lakeside tranquility, and still
just
peaceful.
Drags you into that place.
And for the next while, this is yours, for you to enjoy completely solo.
And we have other activities there, wisdom space and breathing techniques, but I don't, this isn't a sales call, so I don't want to get hung up on that. And the last piece that I wanted to talk about in terms of uses, and then I'll spend a few minutes talking about what's going to happen next. But the last bit around the use cases that's really important is communication. So what we find is that there are so many people now on Zoom calls, and it is difficult, it's tiring, and physically it's tiring because we're looking for the cues that we would have in a meeting, body language, tone of voice, and it's much harder when we're doing it on Zoom. But there are companies that are creating VR applications where you can meet people in virtual reality, and this is a partner of ours, Engage VR. And this video will just show you the kind of settings that you can create in VR. So you can create all these effects. You can have an open conference room.
And so we gather information and build cognitive process to understand concepts.
You can create different landscapes. You can create your traditional office type environment where you're sitting. You're sitting in a standard meeting room with presentation boards, with collaboration, with that kind of thing. You can take people to ancient history sites and talk to them about that.
Communicate with anyone in the world, yet feel like you were in the same room. If you could meet and learn how you can work up the highs from teammates globally, sharing me.
And they have all the collaboration tools and whatnot with them. So that gives us a real opportunity to bring all these elements together. So it's not just meeting people, but it's meeting people collaboratively. It's understanding the language and the body language around your colleagues. And it's literally working on things so that then you remember them rather than just understand them. So I hope that that's a helpful just use of what's virtual reality being used for. And then of course, the other thing about VR is people say, well, that's great, but what happens next? What's all this stuff about the metaverse, and what's all this about, Oculus, and what are they going to do, and what are they not going to do, and what about other players, and will I buy the wrong technology? But I suppose there's a couple of things I just say here. One is, start somewhere with virtual reality. Don't worry about what's going to happen in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, which is really when the big metaverse stuff is going to come into their own. It's not going to come in the next 2-3 years. We don't have enough headsets. We don't have the mature industry. So start slowly. Create champions. Actually, what I'm going to do is just show you this first, actually. One of the things about virtual reality is that it has probably overpromised and underdelivered. That's now changing. So what happened was with, say, mobile phones going back 10, 15, 20 years, it was relatively easy to develop apps for mobile phones, and the infrastructure was relatively well developed. VR, it hasn't been the same. So for instance, with the major manufacturers' stores, it's only really now in the last couple of months they've enabled things like subscription models. Before that, you paid for a one-off game, and developers need more than that. So now that's changing. You'll see more developers come in. You'll see more critical mass. In the meantime, perhaps driven by COVID, the communication tools, the training tools have really got traction. So we're now seeing the ecosystem is starting to deliver what the user needs. We know that, Oculus, which is now, owned by Facebook, it's now called Meta. Pico are the other big headset manufacturers. They're now owned by ByteDance, who are the owners of TikTok. So you can see some powerful money is coming in to this arena. You have HTC, very high-end, really good quality headsets. DPVR, aimed at the cheaper commodity side, but still very good headsets. And we're also seeing, so that's on the headset, the infrastructure side, and they're creating stores that people can download apps and sell them, and companies or individuals can access them. And we're seeing big companies adopt, use, and increase their own VR footprint. And that could be anything from Ford, Shell, Saudi Aramco, Dropbox, Amazon. Lots of these big companies are all starting to use VR for all sorts of different reasons. And we're seeing the messiness a little bit at the moment, that who's driving VR? Is it companies or is it individuals? Is it a corporate or a consumer market? Now it's both, but the drivers are, sometimes hard to read. But one thing is for sure, it is now being driven. The metaverse, the Oculus, the Facebook, the Meta, as they're now called, probably 5 or 10 years away for everyday use. And that's going to enable everything. You'll be able to do your banking, gaming, socialization, shopping, get insurance, do all that on the metaverse. You'll be able to, own property on the metaverse. So it's really like Second Life or one of these things, only on steroids. And lots of people, though, are going to create their versions of the metaverse, which is great, but also it means that for adoption, we as users, we think, should I use that one or that one or that one? And that will take a little bit of time to sort out. One thing I would say on the hardware is that most apps are hardware agnostic. You'll be able to access most of the apps on any headset that you buy. So it makes it easier to put a toe in the water. So just to talk about just the next steps quite quickly, start now, start slowly. Buy 5, 10, 15 headsets, play with them. Speak to the likes of ourselves or Engage or Pixo or wherever and say, look, do you have anything for wellness, for communication, for training? And anything that's easily accessible now, start to get people to use it. Don't worry about getting the perfect use case. Start the process. Meet your providers, of course. See what software is out there, what hardware is out there. Ensure people like IT are comfortable with the technology. And there's no reason why they should be. It's not an intrusive technology. It doesn't even need to sit on your own servers. It can sit, you know, on the cloud. It can interact directly with the headset. It can bypass your own data, therefore, okay? But get people who are comfortable with that. Create a few champions and create a budget. Budget could be, you know, €1,000. It could be 20,000 euros. But create a budget that gives you an opportunity to try this, and create some champions who make it their business to understand what your company's needs are and what's out there, and develop simple use cases using what's out there. Don't go too techie and too nerdy too quickly. Just look at the simple stuff and get some momentum behind this. And one of the areas for momentum will be hybrid working model. You know, the previous speakers were talking a lot about that, you know, but VR will be used for, say, onboarding. You can imagine starting in a company virtually, but you get a tour of what head office looks like, what the manufacturing plant looks like. You get a welcome from the chief executive who sits you down at a chair and talks to you one-to-one. Now, it's a recording, but in VR, you feel eye contact, eye level, they are talking just to you. You can use it for welcome meetings, for staff engagement, team meetings, collaboration. All these things can be delivered in VR and will form such a big part of the hybrid working environment that you'll be able to connect with people emotionally and not just through a PC screen. And of course, by giving people a headset, if that's what you choose to do, you'll also be able to give them things they can share with their family, whether it's games, whether it's wellness, whether it's education. There's so much that, you know, you can use, and that in itself creates the greater engagement with your company. So there's a whistle-stop tour of virtual reality. And I'm just wondering, do we have any questions or comments on that? Is there anything you expected me to talk about that I haven't mentioned? I'm happy to take any questions on that. I know it's a lot there, but rather than focus on one specific area like our own wellness product, or rather than show you the visionary stuff, so let's keep it simple and just show the simple collaboration tools, the simple training tools, the simple communication tools, and of course our own wellness tool, just to understand maybe actually, yeah, we could start with that one. VR is relatively cheap. A good headset might cost 300, 400 euros or dollars. The apps themselves, depending on what they are accessible. It needs a certain amount of scale if you want to, say, do training in VR, or particularly if you want to create your own content, but not a huge amount of scale. And there's an awful lot of content already delivered that you can tap into. So just to finish, to thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through the guys or directly to myself at SolasVR. Great. Thank you so much.